Years ago, I had a chance to interview Dolly Parton, one of my all-time favorite interviews. And my friend said, are you going to ask her if all those things are real, if she's had too many facelifts, whatever? And I said, I can't do that. But I did say, Dolly, is there ever a time you want to take the wigs off, flip those fingernails off, and just be all Dolly Rebecca Parton Dean? Well, honey, it's like this. I am always Dolly Rebecca Parton, Dolly Parton Rebecca, however that goes. But honey, this is a good barn, and I like painting and powder. So if I paint it up so it looks real pretty, I'm so happy. But I'm telling you right now, if I take all this paint off, it's still a dang good barn. So I don't know exactly the answer to the questions that my friends wanted me to ask, but I will tell you that she was adorable. And here's what she said next. Honey, I come from a little old town in Tennessee. We don't have fuel for the winter. We don't have books for the schools. We don't have food for our tables. And if I come out here and sing little old Dolly Parton songs, I couldn't get any money from working in LA. So I made up this character, and baby, you better believe I'm sending a whop load of money back to Tennessee. And if you've ever been to Dolly World, or if you've ever seen her videos, you know that she has definitely done that. But in that short little sentence, she told me exactly who she is, what she's doing, and why she's doing it. And the sooner you can tell any of your audiences that about you, the sooner they buy in and you become instantly believable. So this is Janet Ray Fox, corner Montgomery and Locust Streets, lovely downtown Shelbyville, Indiana. I've kind of lived part of Dolly's story, not necessarily to the extreme poverty, but that house was filled with mold. And I couldn't stand it then, and I can't stand walking in a moldy building now. Can you see the broken window, the broken roof, the broken fence, the weeds, my brother's dirty knees? That can tell you how I grew up. And this is my pretty mama. And this was the word that she used for me most often. And I'm going to say it in her tone of voice. Shut up. And I heard it many, many, many times. So I'm very proud to say that I've worked speaking since I was in the 3rd grade. All right. So I showed her. But this is my great Aunt Lottie. And I got to go to her house on Saturday nights. And I can still smell the cashews that she would roast in the oven to warm them up for me when I got there. I can still taste the crunch. And we didn't have cashews at our house. And she had a TV. So one night I got to watch Miss America. Now I know this is not necessarily something girls aspire to today, but when I was a kid from that ratty old house and I saw these girls with shiny white teeth. Now I'm 9 or 10 years old, so I don't know why I'm looking at teeth, but I thought they looked happy and I wanted that. And those dresses, you could hear them walk when they walked on the runway. It went swish, swish, swish. I would never have one of those dresses in my lifetime, but I could wish. And that's what I did. So when I went home that night, I stood up on my dirty old bed. I pulled up a dirty old blanket and looked in the mirror above the dresser. And I walked the Miss America runway because my blanket became the cape. Now, is there anybody in this audience who thinks I'm about to tell you that, yes, I got to be Miss America? Try not to laugh or chuckle, or I will have to say, why is that so funny? Okay, but watch this. I got to be Miss Shelbyville, Indiana, 1962. And what I got to do was give away ribbons and trophies to pigs and chickens in the barn. And it was a smelly mess. But for a minute, I was somebody on my block. And so the question becomes, how did that little mangy kid from that moldy old house end up on Channel 9 News and last for more than 20 years? I wish I could tell you. You can put some guesses, you can write some guesses into your chat bubble, if your chat box, if you want. But I think it was just somebody somewhere laid a path for me and I just walked it. And I stand here today and every day in awe and complete and total gratitude for the remarkable life I've been able to live that I never could have imagined from my corner. So now let me ask you some questions. And here's how this works. I'm going to ask the question. You can shout out an answer. I might not hear it, but you can put it in the chat bubble if you want. What did you feel for me when I told you I came from that moldy old house? Anybody shout something out for me? Anybody feel a little sympathy? Anybody thinking I came from one of those too? And then when I told you about my mom, and her worst word for me, or the most often used word, was shut up, and I didn't mention that she was abusive. What did you feel for me then?
So Tamara writes, connected. I came from the country. Jennifer writes, empathy. Barbara said, sympathy. Yes. Christopher said, never compromising and always with determination to achieve. And we see other comments, empathy, genuine, sad, sadness.
So that story just accomplished what I wanted it to accomplish. I gave you a phenomenological experience. So now what did you feel from me when I showed you that I had an Aunt Lottie and then I made it to Channel 9 News, not to Miss America, but what did you feel for me then? Maybe some different words, right? Do you see them, Katerina, different words?
We see celebration, salvation,
hope.
You make your dream come true.
So I didn't even dream that dream, but yeah, I got off the corner. That was my dream. So let me tell you what this big word means. It means if I tell you my story, like I'm reliving it or feeling it or having the same goosebumps, if I'm telling it like that, then you can buy in. If I'm just saying, well, I came from Montgomery and Locust Streets and I didn't blah, blah, blah. It's just a story. It's just not, it's somebody recounting. But if I tell it like I feel it, then I can make you feel feelings. And that's what you do with your brand. You make people feel about you, and then they want to buy in because people do business with people they like. So let me just ask a couple more questions here. Can you tell your story to make them feel? You have to make them feel. And is the fastest way to change behavior, if you are talking to your team and you want to move from point A to point B, or if you're trying to persuade the boss to do something, is the best way to do that through the head or through the heart, would you say? I know what you're going to write. Most of you are going to write heart. So let me just demonstrate that it's absolutely true, okay? Here is some Ready Whip. So I would invite one of you, usually I like to invite a big burly guy, up to the front and say, tell me the last time you told a story and tell me what it was to move an audience. And you know what they do? And I say, stop, that took way too long. And then I do this. And I say, now tell me a story that you told. And what do you think they do? Oh, abba-dabba-doo, they tell a story really, really, really fast. And I don't even have to get to the end of the story. I just have to prove what with that little demonstration? What drove that person's desire and willingness to speak about a story right away? What drove that? What drove it? Was the heart thinking about it, or was it the head thinking about it, or the heart? Did you guess heart? Exactly. So that's the fastest way to change behavior. And researchers say the number one way you can have the biggest impact to do those things is with your own story. But here's great news. Some people would say that stories are frou-frou, but Dr. Paul Zak has now done a lot of research, and he says your brain loves good storytelling too, so we can get them both through the brain and the heart if we tell good stories. And he says that when you tell your own story and people identify in, it releases a molecule in your brain, and it's called the love molecule, so you can check on that when you get back to your computer. But he says it releases feelings in us that make us want to trust, cooperate, and empathize. And tell the truth. Isn't that all you want your teams to do? Isn't that all you want your bosses to do? Isn't that all you want your kids to do? But that's another story. So just tell good stories. Let me ask some more questions here. Did my story change your mood for a minute? You were going along one way, and then I told that story. You can nod your heads yes, if you would, for me. So my guess is you're gonna say yes. Yeah. And did it change your mind about me? Channel 9, 20 years, 4 Emmys on the shelf. long career. Did you think I came from that little muddy rat hole? Did it change your belief about the importance of a story? How stories can make different impacts on people? And did it change the direction of where you thought we were going? Did it change your opinion this quickly about whether or not you can tell a good story and insert it into a talk? Maybe not, but we'll get there in a minute. And did it change the pace? We were going along quickly with a lot of blips, and then I tell that story and people feel all those words that you put in the chat box. Here's the big deal. Stories can change your outcomes. Now, I know that you are on that G1 through 17, 19, many of you on that government pay structure. And so you might not think it changes your outcomes, but researchers say that he or she who speaks best and tells good stories go to the top of the leaderboard. So maybe you make some jumps along the way if you tell good stories. And here's the big deal, especially for public servants and public leaders. Your stories can actually change lives. You can inspire with your stories. I got a call from the vice president, a vice president at Accenture, who wanted me to work with another vice president because he had a humongous meeting at the TSA and he wanted him to do a good job. So the first thing he says to me is, could I start with a story? Now imagine that. I am thrilled that a guy says, can I start with a story? I want to do the Seinfeld happy dance, but my mood changed very quickly because he told how he lived in New York City. It was his city. He grew up there. He could not believe what happened at 9/11. He went down the next day to see the devastation, and all he could do was shed tears. And he says, at that moment, I stood there and I said, someday I will work for somebody who's going to keep this from happening in other cities. Is it all right if I tell that story at the TSA meeting? I said, you start with that story. And the woman at the other end who was leading the delegation said, would you mind if I came and gave you a hug? Now, he didn't expect getting paid with a hug, but where is that woman going to go when the contracts are in front of her? A $2 billion contract. It took a year to sign it. And some of you, some of you work in Homeland Security, you might have worked or might still be working on that multi-year contract. Here's a little simpler story. This is former Rear Admiral Sandra Stoze. She was the first female who ever led a service organization or service academy, and it was the Coast Guard. And she was small and she was timid about speaking, and she came from a nice family. She didn't have any stories. Well, I just happened to be the first woman to captain a submarine. Okay, so we worked on some stories and I got a letter. I never believed I could speak without notes. Now I'm doing it and telling my story, and I'm getting recognized for it. So maybe you don't get a $2 billion contract by telling your story, but you get recognition for being a believable, likable, inspirational person by telling your story. Here's the outline. Now, there are storytellers who will tell you that you have to have 15 steps to get to the top of the arc of the story, and then you need 15 steps to get to the resolution. I believe you need 4 pieces. You're stuck. You have an opening. You take some action and you see the result. And it can be from your home. It can be from another job that you had. Wherever you can tell the first overcoming story that you remember living, that's the story that will have the most impact. So here we go. I just want to give you some pictures to remind you of what these words mean. This is what stuck looks like. Anybody ever felt that way in your life? One of the most often asked questions is, how did you get there? I don't know, but I don't want to be the person to pull them out. But this is what it looks like on a daily basis for some of you on the job, especially during COVID. But this is my Aunt Lottie. So she was my opening. She loved me. She had a clean house. She fed me. She was lovely to me. Her clothes all matched. She didn't cuss. She was my savior. And this is Tommy Fox. Now, I believe that Tommy Fox, my dad, was the first agile scrum leader, because I would go to him with a problem and he would say, next. And that meant get over it. What are you going to do next? And I learned that quickly in my life. And then he would say, opportunity knocks, then walks Janet Fox. So I would like you all to say that with me now. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Albert out loud.
Opportunity knocks.
In walks.
In walks.
No, I'm Janet Fox. Don't say my name. Say your name, okay? It might not rhyme, but here we go again. Opportunity knocks. In walks.
In walks.
In walks.
There you go. Now, I believe if you just said those words with your name, you felt something pop into your body immediately. What was it? Something, it's called somatics, when your body feels something that you can emulate again. It doesn't necessarily work for my golf swing, but if you say opportunity knocks and in walks Laverne, in walks Kathleen, in walks Francis.
Excitement.
Excitement.
Empowerment.
Yeah.
Empowerment.
Yes.
Yes, and confidence. And I never have to say the word confidence in my sessions. It just pops in when you think about the next thing that you can do, and that bold speaking can help you get there. And this is what a result looks like when you take an action. That's what the result feels like. So now, in a blink, I want you to think about your story. And I believe in the chat room, you have 2 sheets. One is just a blank document that has those little stories with some blanks. Then there's another one that has those little pictures, and it also has some starters or some prompts to get you to start to think about your story. And I want you to just don't fill it out in great detail. This story doesn't start. I went downtown and it was raining. No, I think it was sleeting, and I was with my mother. No, it was really my auntie. And we were going to go shopping, and it was about 2 o'clock. These are not that kinds of stories. You cannot move people when you tell stories like that. So I want you to just think in a blink what that story might be that you could tell. And here we go again. We're admitting somebody, so I have to admit my sharing again. And here we go, one more time. I have to do 2 or 3 clicks to get to it. Okay, here we go. So there's the outline again, right? Everybody got it? You see it? Just a word or 2 on the paper that will, or on the screen that will remind you of the time you were stuck. You don't have to tell it all out, and you only need, Dolly Parton only told me 3 or 4 lines. I only showed you 3 or 4 pictures. And then you have an opening, you take the action, you get the result. Now, I want you to keep working on that little story for a moment while I say a few more things. Your story really matters, and here's why. If you are a government contractor or you work with a government contractor and you look up those words on Google, there are 361 million results in 0.72 seconds. If you look government employee, you're only one of 4,730,000,000 in 0.68 seconds. And just so you know, you're not alone. If I look up speaker coach, 158 million responses in 0.07 seconds. So our story is what sets us apart. It's not your title. It's not your job description. It's not your place of employment. Only your story sets you apart from everybody else. And how you tell it depends on how big of an impact you will have. Remember, Maya Angelou says, they don't remember what you say. They don't remember the facts, the figures. Even if you give them a PowerPoint with 5,000 bullet points, they don't remember what you say until you make them feel something. Researchers say it over and over again. They remember how you made them feel. Now, I want you to look at the little story plan you worked out here. And I want you to ask yourself these 3 questions. These are my edit points for any story that I tell. Did I give you something you could see? Could you see the old house? Could you see the beautiful but mean old mom? Did you see my brother's dirty knees? That's the first edit point, visualization. But if you use the other senses, like hearing the dresses or smelling the cashews, that's even more important. And then the second edit point is, did you make me feel something? Will your story make me feel an emotion? And I'm not naming what it is. You named what mine were. You can make people feel all kinds of emotions with your stories. And the third one is, can I imagine a better life or a better workplace, a better environment for myself by hearing your story? What can you make me imagine? I hope I made you imagine that if a kid can come from that ratty place and survive and live to tell it, then and you're in that situation or you've been through that situation, then you have a story to tell that can make others imagine a better life for themselves. So now it's your turn. Is there one person, I'll even take two, is there one person who's put together a little 4-step outline who might share it with us? Okay, remember, nice and tight, okay? I'm so excited that you volunteered. Go ahead.
Yes, Jan, thank you. I was stuck 24 years ago in Middle East environment. There was no dreams, no motivation for me. I opened up by working as an engineer with United Nations, and I experienced the American dream. I thought American dream is never true until I came to United States. I took many action. I got married. I had kids. I went back to school. I'm graduated from GW as a system engineer. Although I came to this country with $300, but millions of dreams. I make all my dreams come true. I built a business of coaching and mentoring. Now I'm mentoring at GW and women engineering. The American dream, which I has doubt, now I'm a transition expert, teaching others who come to this country that American dream is the truth. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, it's beautiful.
Beautiful.
You could tighten it in little places. You could just tighten it up a little bit in little places. But we saw the progression in a Middle East country, no dreams, getting to be an engineer, then thinking you could come to America, and you come to America and you get to experience it and you tell us a little bit about it. And now look at your life. How can that not inspire people? How can that not build people up and let them believe their dreams could come true? So thank you so very, very much for sharing. Give her a big round of applause. Put these people on a stage someplace, Katerina, okay? Next, there it is. There it is again. Just remember it. I want you to listen for what that story does for you when you tell it. Listen for the connection, because that's magic. We feel like we know Francis and Sarah and we want to know them even more, because that's what their story did for us. And that's what you're looking for. And it goes on and on and on. Do they know what they're saying? They don't even know what they're saying. But are they completely and totally connected by that language? They are. And that's the kind of connection I want for all of you when you tell your stories. Now look, on a business side, here are all the things that stories can do for you. And there's a group called Virtual Speech, and they have written a beautiful long article that goes into great detail. And I will send that to you. And I will send you my 52 top talk tips. Try to say that fast. And just send me an email at janetfoxtalks.com. I'll also send you the 5 secrets of a great TEDx talk, because you have some great TEDx talks right in you. I heard them already. So, and trust me, I'm too lazy and too old to send you a whole bunch of emails in your email box. I just want to get them to you the fastest way possible. And I want to thank you for joining us today. That's all I'm going to do in that email. So the question is, how do you do it? How do you fit that story into a larger talk or to a motivational speech or a team leadership speech? I call it story fitting. And here's how it works. You can open with a story. You can go to the middle to make some points. You can change direction if you need to in a story. You can change the pace in a story. You can make an ask. Would some of you join me at such and such? Would you please do this for the team? You make an ask, tell a story, they'll be motivated by it. And you can revisit that story near the end, or you can just use that story as the close. So there are lots of places to use the story, and here's how to do it. You can tell it whole, or you can tell it in slices, or you can tell it in bites. And I want to show you how that works. You turn it into tips or steps. A person I had who climbed Mount Kilimanjaro turned her talk into mile posts. Somebody else turned it into dynamic action points. Whatever it takes, you can turn your story into steps that can help people. And then after each tip or step, you can give information or statistics or facts and figures and features, but you keep the whole talk geared into how you told your story. So when you see Janet Ray Fox, you know that I'm saying you are not where you came from. When you see Mamino Mom, I can say, and so my tip for you is stop the naysayers. Don't listen to the naysayers who are real, and don't listen to the ones in your head. And you find your Aunt Lottie, find your savior, find somebody who'll do for you what other people couldn't. Find your champion. And Tommy Fox, opportunity knocks. Next, just let him give you his speech in your ear like he did me. And so I put all that together and information in between, and I got a 20-minute talk. You can do that too. Does that help you? Does that make sense? Okay, one more thing. This is what not to do. You noticed at the beginning, I didn't say I've got a story for you. I want to tell you about Dolly Parton. I didn't say I want to tell you about Janet Fox, because the minute I say as a speaker, I have a story for you, what do? You roll your eyes. Oh boy, here it comes. So you just go into it, and you never say, hey, a funny thing happened I want to tell you about. Well, I will decide if it's funny. Don't describe for me that it's funny. Don't tell me you have an inspirational story for me. I will decide that. And never say I have a short story if you know you're going to talk for a long time. And never say, you'll like this, and then start. Because I will decide if I like it. So I just said, I had a chance to interview Dolly Parton long ago, and this is Janet Ray Fox. So you just fit it together without doing these kinds of things. And this is the worst one. Yay, look at me, I'm the hero. I always try to find a way when I tell one of my stories that I stand in gratitude for it, not, look, I did it all by myself. Wrong, I didn't do it all by myself. And it's a turnoff to make yourself the hero of the story. So let the people who pinned, and you didn't do this by any means, Francis, but let the people who pinned those stripes on your shoulder be the heroes. They did that for me. Who is the person who's going to do that for you? Okay. Now, so the next thing is, how do you tell it? You can't just tell it like, nah, 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 right? So I have a whole series of speak tweaks. They're just small things, little actions that you can take that will have you make bigger impact right away. And so when we do our Step Up to the Mic program in the fall, you will learn all those speak tweaks. The first one, see on this line, this is all the stuff we'll teach you and more, but see where it says build your executive presence? I'm going to give you a very simple speak tweak. Are you ready? Lean in and speak louder. That's all you have to do. Lean into the table. Don't slouch at the back of the big board table or the boss table. Lean in and speak louder. And somebody will tell you you did a great job just by that little tweak. And I have many more, like what to do with your hands, posture, blah, blah. And we'll help you develop a signature story. We'll help you refine it. We'll edit it with those 3 edit points. We can show you how to turn it into a 20-minute talk. And guess what? If you add some exercises along the way, like sit there and fill out your story patterns. If you add some exercises to each one of the segments of your story, you've got a breakout session, a 45-minute breakout session. And if you add some sharing time, you have 4 mornings of workshop, okay? And that's what we're gonna have in September. So Katerina, what else would you like to say about it? She's developed the whole thing.
Well, Jen, thank you for that fabulous introduction. I just want to mention I put in a link. If you're interested in the program information, you can learn a lot more on our website. And just to add on to what Jan was saying, we call it our bold speaking program. So bold stands for believable, on target, likable, and daring. So that's something that you would like to see in yourself, in your own speaking style. We'd love for you to come and just find out more information. And one of my favorite parts of this experience is that we built a one-on-one coaching opportunity with Jan. So if you have a presentation that's coming up that's giving you jitters, this is your chance to work on that with her one-on-one.
I'm so excited. I tried to retire, but GW calls and I love them so much. I keep saying yes.
We want you, Jen.
So here's the most important speak tweak I'm going to give you in the whole bunch. And that is deliver your talk with passion. And passion doesn't have to be like mine, which is yay, yay, yay. Can you tell I'm passionate about what I do and that I love what I do? Yeah, well, sometimes I sound like one of those creatures that runs across the stage, yay, 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 yay. And I would like to not always do that. So I think that passion can also come from, well, think about this. Think about this. I came from a place where women didn't have any dreams. And then anger. We can't keep going with these numbers. There's a place in some of your team meetings for your anger to show so that they will be motivated to do better. And then I love this one. Excuse me. I talked too long without water. Okay, this is my favorite one. Shh. Katerina has some surprise bonuses for you at the end of this. And so people will, when you get quiet to tell them a big point, they pay attention for that too. And I want you to give 100% of your passion with a lot of emotions when you tell your stories. And remember, your audiences feel like this, right? A lot of the audiences you have, especially after COVID, and you and your story can be their lifeline. I want every story that you tell to help them stand in hope. I want you to offer them possibility. And that's what your stories can do. Stories can actually equal change. You want to see a change in the world or a change in your team? The stories can make that happen. And I say right now, the world is yours to change, and we need it everywhere you look. So change your world like only your story can. And I love you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you.